Welcome to a rather special show here on Jay Leno's Garage, where I've taken a trip to South Florida to the not that well-known Mosler factory, where I have this gorgeous MT900S, where I'm going to give you a little tour of the car, and then later in the week my dad's actually going to take it to the racetrack to show you what one of these cars can actually do. Behind me you will see the new Mosler MT900S, S for street, and I actually have a little bit of a racing pedigree with this car. I drove one of these, or its predecessor in the racing format, into a victory at Barber Motorsports Park. But remember, this is a car that started out as a road project. It's the vision of Warren Mosler to create the ultimate road car, which has gone on to much racing success. Now, I brought along a man who is more than qualified to step into my smaller shoes. My dad, Derek Bell. Here you are, Dad. Well, welcome to the factory, and obviously I don't need to introduce my father, but his racing success has been primarily in sports cars. So when you look at a car like this, it's sort of you almost don't know where to place it, do you? Is it a road car? What does it make you feel like?
I feel just like I'm going racing. You walk in here and the guys are enthusiastic, they're working on the components to build the car, and they're racing freaks, aren't they? They have to be. Spend hours building cars like this. And it's so exciting to look at. I mean, look at that car behind us, the colouring of it and everything, and the shape of that car. It's absolutely stunning, and it looks like it's ready to race, but in fact, it's a street car. And for me to get the chance to take it out and drive it on a track, when I consider that it was we were working out 25 years ago, that I rode what I called the ugly duckling, which was then called a Consigliere.
And as one of the design team here says, it had engineering beauty, which is a good way of saying it's like she has a nice personality. But let's move on past that. Here we have this quite extraordinary shape, and when I raced the car, it really was not that much different from this, which I think is a testament to what they've actually achieved. This is a road car that then created a racing lineage with all that technology and sort of engineering feedback, and now it's culminated in probably one of the ultimate road cars.
You look at it, it's a race car, isn't it? But it can be driven on the road in a very refined way. You know, when you hear about cars that they build 25, 30 a year of, you sort of push them to one side and say, no, I want a Porsche or a Ferrari or something. But when you actually look at the quality of this car and the finish, it's absolutely superb. And I think it's the most beautiful piece of engineering and a piece of artwork that they've created over the years.
We should really explain why you have all these louvers, air vents, this here, these slits here, are not, you know, by accident. It's really for extraction and downforce.
And I believe over the years they actually created the back downforce to be almost too great. So they've had to relieve that, take some of that away to give it a balance.
And this car has a weight distribution of 40-60, which actually is quite heavy out the rear when you think a lot of cars are able almost to get 50-50 weight balance. With road cars, it's an aesthetic purchase, but also you look at it and you think, am I going to be safe in it? Is it going to be, you know, is it going to take care of me and my passenger? And obviously to be fully certified here in the US as I think one of only 4 manufacturers that have fully carbon fiber monocoque certification, which is an enormous investment. It actually went through crash tests, and I believe out of all the cars the government had tested, it had the strongest roof crush resistance, and that's because of carbon fiber. Let's take a look at the back.
It looks just like the back of many race cars that you've driven and I've driven over the years. I mean, there it is. But again, they've done so much work with racing that logically they're going to go for that. It's a supercar. They're trying to attract attention. So they've done just that. But it's not just there for show, it's there because it actually does work. Hence, they race them a lot in Europe.
25 of them, I think. Has a 19-inch front tyre package and a 20-inch rear. And I think you're going to be glad of the 20-inch rears with no traction control. It's back down to some proper management.
Most of professionals actually try to outwit it, and every time it comes in, just as you're correcting it, it comes in to help you, and you say, I don't need your help, I'm doing really quite well on my own.
Then you start fighting each other. You're like,
So the first thing I do is I switch it straight off. So here we are, it's going to be off anyway, and it's going to be just raw driving, and that's what you want. And they've done a heck of a lot of work with it on jig testing, you know, on the rig. And you know, the car is very well balanced, and the suspension is being worked on considerably. So the car is, you know, as I say, it's almost like it's reached the end, not the end of its development, but it really is a finished car now.
Yeah. You mentioned suspension. We can have a look over here on this one and take a look at it. Opening the trunk was Todd Wagner, chief, the grand fromage of design and engineering on this car. Todd's been involved now for how many years?
6 years.
6 years, and has came from a life of a lot of chassis development beforehand, so a lot of years of experience on other cars has gone into refining the suspension. Tell us a little bit about it.
So some little details, such as the urethane bushings in the sway bars, makes the car much freer, so you don't have any mid-corners skirting around. The rest of the suspension is all fabricated control arms with Heim joints, just like a race car. And I don't know if there are any other road cars that have this type of suspension. The benefit is you have instantaneous steering response. There's no compliance, no lateral squish in the suspension to make the car feel like it's reacting slowly. So when you're going down the road and you turn the wheels back and forth, the car is instantaneously moving. All the mass is centrally located in the engine, and all the mass on the periphery of the car is all extremely light carbon fiber.
Well, obviously, we haven't even talked about the engine yet, so can you give us a few details on that and what we expect the performance to be like?
The engine is one of the great parts of this car in that it's very low cost of ownership. It's a bulletproof American LS7 power plant, 7 liters, 530 horsepower, 315 pound-feet of torque. And in a car that only weighs 2,425 pounds, that's a power-to-weight ratio very, very similar to a Veyron.
0 to 60 was 2.8?
2.9.
2.9.
That's amazing.
And that's with the stock engine.
Gearbox?
Gearbox is a Porsche Getrag, 6-speed.
Well, I love these wheels. This car's got carbon fiber wheels on, which is just
and magnesium centers.
That's very hot.
These are built by Dimag in the UK, and they actually used a Boeing engineer to help them design the interface between the magnesium center and the all-carbon outer. So everything is the best.
There's always a yin and yang, a compromise, a conflict between design and engineering, because the designers go, oh, I'd love that, that's great, and the engineering guys go, it ain't going to work. Some of it's cost driven, some of it is obviously form and functionality. Where would you say this is placed? I mean, you talk about the, the bushings you got on the suspension. You don't shy away from spending the money in certain areas.
No, just an example, a Heim joint costs about $60. A comparable rubber bushing that we've seen in like some typical car be like 60 cents.
Okay. That's why it all ratchets up and starts to cost a little bit more. And this, I presume, is the trunk.
Yes.
People probably aren't going to carry too much luggage, but the layman in me would say that with all this like double layer of carbon fiber here, it's also a crash zone.
Absolutely is. This will actually bend in absorbing energy.
Wow. Carrying on the theme of the, of sort of under the skin of this car, most of the owners probably won't take the front off, but it's gorgeous. I mean, even the carbon fiber you're never going to see, and huge great radiator here. Is it very efficient on the way it brings the air in?
Our racing teams generally say that this is one of the easiest cars they've ever driven to cool.
Wow.
And the cooling is very efficient in this car, even with a very small opening here.
You're very lucky to achieve that, because these big engines usually sort of are always gasping for air for cooling. The body line, the way this all fits and everything is absolutely outstanding. Tell us a bit about it.
All of our cut lines are 3 millimeters. And they're all even, because all the carbon components that come out of the mold are not exactly the same. There's some twist. We had to actually invent a completely new system for painting the cars.
Painting onto raw carbon fiber is not easy.
No.
You're starting with something that's got an inherent weave that wants to come through.
I think you've done a magnificent job with it.
Let's take a look inside. Finally get to sit inside the Mosler MG900S, and they've come a long way. It has this completely fighter plane feel, and there's a ton of exposed carbon fiber, and even right here in the middle, everything's sort of cut out of a solid billet of aluminum in your world, and it's just really nicely done. Great position on the gear stick. Analog gauges with a little M for Mosler in the middle. They actually have this, and I guess my dad will be able to tell you what he thinks when it's on the track, but a unique seat mold, it's all carbon fiber backing, and the seat for a larger gentleman can actually have some of the foam removed, and for someone with non-childbearing hips like myself, you actually add foam. Remember, this car goes around corners very fast, so lateral support in the seat's very important. And down here, something you don't see a lot in most road cars, but this is a supercar, is the adjustable brake bias. When you drive a race car, and as the tires go off and the fuel load lessens, you actually do adjust that. But remember, also, people that own a car like this might go from the road and take it to a track weekend, and that's when you might want to dial a little bit more brake into the rear or something. So it's a great cabin, gives you this feeling that you're probably behind the wheel of something very, very fast. Well, I hope you enjoyed this show on Jay Leno's Garage. We certainly did enjoy doing it. And of course, he's so lucky. He'll be driving the car this Friday at the Palm Beach International Raceway. The things I do for my old dad.
I think it was the other way once.
It was. Yeah. Stay tuned.